Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcast by the podcaster that can't find his coconut water. They said, did I bring it? I just was looking for it in a panic because, of course, I thought it was spilt. But it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. You don't need to know the details, do you? Well, welcome. If you could follow us on Twitter at Dear Scooter, that'd be great. Good way to keep in touch with you. And if you could support the show using our Amazon link at sleepwithmepodcast.com/Amazon. That's a huge way to support the show. It doesn't cost you anything. You just got to remember to use it, bookmark it, or whatever. And believe it or not, I have a product recommendation over on Amazon. They came out with their new Echo Dot, D-O-T. And it's a little hockey puck looking thing that is like the voice commands like the other ones you've seen. But you plug it into a speaker. I have one of these, and I love it. I don't have time to explain all the reasons I love it. It plays music either by Bluetooth or you plug it into a speaker, so you can use good speakers. And you can use it to control stuff. But the best part is, and I think I've talked about this before, I can say, hey, I say, Alexa, play 99% Invisible. Boom. Alexa, play Criminal. So I think maybe I have to say Criminal Podcast so she does it. And then I'll say, Alexa, I'll be joking around, but I say, play Sleep With Me Podcast. And maybe 1 out of every 10 times she'll play Sleep With Me Podcast. So that's on Amazon. Sleepwithmepodcast.com/echo. I'll make a link. I probably won't remember, but try that link. But if you're going to do any shopping on Amazon, Mr. Bird, you got a song so people can remember?
Maybe none of the advertisers excite. Maybe you don't got the funds for Patreon right now. You told all your friends about the show. You've done everything right, you know. But you can go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/Amazon. Bookmark it so you can find it whenever you want, and use it whenever you shop at Amazon.
So that's it, sleepwithmepodcast.com/Amazon. From the U.S., Canada, or the UK, that should work. Housekeeping, we're on the web, www.sleepwithmepodcast.com. Older episodes are there. You can comment on our show notes. You can email me feedback at sleepwithmepodcast.com. Get me on Twitter at Dear Scooter, on Facebook at Sleep With Me Podcast. I want to thank Jonathan Mann, who just did that lullaby. You can commission a song of any sort from him at jonathanmann.net. I want to thank Chris Posterson from Sounds Like an Earful, who does our theme music and edited this show. I want to thank Scotty and Jennifer on our artwork. I want to thank all the patrons who made this show possible over at sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. If you want to support the show, go ahead and join them. It's a blast, man. I want to thank our Facebook. We have a Facebook group, the listeners do. sleepwithmepodcast.com/nods, N-O-D-S. And I want to thank our moderators over there. Julie and Jennifer, Lauren, Lida, and Summer, and Sarah. And I also want to give a shout-out to Kate K., one of our newer listeners, and a wonderful, wonderful person. I had a couple nice conversations with online. And I got a podcast of Kate to check out, Poetry Now. Now, I know how many of you listeners are either poets or love poetry. How many of you listen to Poetry Now? Well, how about now? How about you subscribe to it? Kate's the producer over there. If you want a little dose of poetry, how about some Poetry Now? Get you right now. Subscribe to Poetry Now so I can stop making these jokes. But it's Poetry Now. And if you do, it's Poetry Now, one word. Find it in your podcatcher, whether it's Apple podcatcher or something else. But if you have a chance to subscribe to it in iTunes and review and rate it, that's always nice to support our good friend Kate. And that's it. Let's get on with the show. Hey, you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Also, I always run out of air when I get to podcasts that put you to sleep, and then I have to pause and take a breath. FYI. That was, I just took a breath. You probably couldn't hear it. That was a tiny breath. Like that one. I've been getting, that's how long it took me. Like, it took me about 300 episodes to be able to breathe on the podcast. Who was that? Chocolate Rain Tay. I learned a lot of my breathing techniques from that wonderful song. And I support him on Patreon, though I can't remember. It's Tay, I think. Anyway, welcome to Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out your lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. And what I'm going to do is carve out a safe place. And just despite the fact that safe places are getting poo-pooed as of late, I tend to say, hey, bedtime, virtual blanket fort. Is what I'm trying to create here, or a metaphorical and figurative one as well. Because it's a safe place where you can set aside whatever's been keeping you awake, whether it's thinking, listing. If you're on a ship that's listing, oh boy, I've been there, believe it or not, and I couldn't sleep either. It could be emotional feelings, physical sensations, stuff from the distant past, or just something that just happened. Could be noises in the room right now. We're changing routine, whatever it is. You're traveling, you're on a plane. Hey, what's up? What seat you got in the plane? But whatever it is, I want to take your mind off of that. I'm going to use lulling, soothing tones, pointless meanders, sudden expected pauses. Oh, natural word accidents, just like that. A little, not a rear ender. What do you call that when it's words? You say just stumbling over my own words. Exactly. Thank you, brain. Sometimes I feel like I'm stumbling over other people, left behind words that people just say they don't even clean up after. Not only do people not clean up after their dogs, you can't see it. Unfortunately, I've been graced with the power of word stumbling. So I stumble over other people's, sentence fragments. You just leave your friggin' sentence fragments lying around. And let me just transition right there, because that's something that can crop up at bedtime. That voice that we just heard. What's wrong with you? Why do you gotta? You know how much better things would be if you didn't constantly fragment your sentences. And meanwhile, you just pulled the covers up to your chin and you're saying, and then you don't know whether to engage that voice. I call them brain bots. That's one of the ways I use them to describe around here. They all have different jobs. They're like little droids. They're part of some sort of maladaptive, adaptive, maybe. I don't know if they're related to evolution. But I do know this, they never evolved sleep mode. So as soon as you get into sleep mode, they like say, oh, it's all quiet. We'll have the full attention of this person. And they say, well, yeah, why? Like, what kind of person fragments their sentences? That's what I was saying before that podcaster interrupted. And you say, well, I don't know. I'm not sure I understand what a sentence fragment is. Like, I just try to communicate. Like, I'm just trying to communicate. I'm just trying to do the best job I can. Well, that's not good enough. I'll be honest with you. You don't even know what a sentence fragment is. The kind of person that doesn't fragment their sentences, they will look it up and figure out how to stop it. And you say, well, I'm just going to, can I work on my sentence fragmentations tomorrow because I'm about to go to bed. I had a long day at work. Maybe, did you ever think maybe my sentences are fragmenting just from, I'm just tired. So then my sentence go from fully formed. Which part is, when it's a fragment, is it missing a noun, a verb, or one of the other things? Is it, do I need something transitive in there? And then, well, there you go. You're just deflecting the truth with humor. You can't handle the truth, so you got to deflect it with humor. Aren't you funny? Well, no, I wasn't trying to be funny. I was just saying, I believe it or not, I'm just about to puff my pillow, and I had a cup of tea, and you're really killing. Tea doesn't give you a buzz, but you're harshing. If I had a tea mellow, you just harshed it. You're still using humor to deflect. Okay, well, honestly, I don't want any truth at bedtime. I don't. If bedtime could be a no truth zone, could we get out? Could we work on that? Okay, well, we're just afraid that this is the best time for you to hear the truth because it really sinks in. And okay, so this could go on for hours. For me, it does sometimes, and maybe it goes on like that for you, or maybe it's something different but relatable. It could be just something, sparking up or whatever. My job as a podcaster is to take your mind off of that. And I guess one of the reasons I am somewhat adept at being inept is that my brain tends to work that way. I got a lot of stuff going, and believe me, at bedtime it gets worse. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to finish out this intro. If you're new here, welcome. I'm glad you're here. So the podcast is a distractor. Like I send my voice across the deep, dark night. Did I say that already? I guess I got those brain bots. They were tough. Those are tough customers. And now I'm just still thinking, should I keep talking? If I'm fragmenting my sentences, will I be judged later? And I know I did an intro about the Oxford comma a long time ago, and then a woman showed up with a doily, I think, right in my studio. She was an apparition from my brain. And she said, remember that? Was anybody here for that? She said, I'm a practitioner of the Oxford comma. And I said, you and every person that won't swipe me, that I swiped, they all say the practitioners of the Oxford commas. You say, Scoots, what's your white whale? And I'd say, well, presumably women that practice, they use the Oxford comma. I guess I'm a total, there's something about me that, they say, well, I practice, I don't practice, I practice I don't practice. I think I do practice. I've been trying to practice Oxford comma, to sneak it by them, comma, and, get their attention, comma, and, maybe say, get a possible swipe in there. What do you say? Maybe I'll add that practitioner of the Oxford comma, wink, comma. That's not funny. That's not, you're right. There goes a part of my brain that was a good humor critic part of my brain. But if you're new here, let me reset. This is a podcast to take your mind off stuff. You don't have to listen the whole, I'll be here for an hour, and I'll tell a little bedtime story. I think maybe this one will have a guest on, and they'll talk, and they're a little more chill and friendly than me. But all you got to do is lay there and kind of listen, and you don't really need to remember what I'm talking about. You can set your sleep timer for 45 minutes. You can set it for 60 minutes. Or you can listen to the podcast in a playlist through the whole night. I'll be here rambling. That's what I do best. And that's what I'm going to try to do. So just kind of take your mind off stuff. The question would be, as I've been stumbling here over other people's sentence fragments that they've left out. So I don't know what is keeping you up at night, but I'm going to try to take your mind off of it. And you could listen the whole time. If you can't sleep, I'll be here. But I'll do this bedtime story, or the guest will. And we'll be giving it our alls to distract you. But you're under no obligation to listen or remember any of this stuff. Just kick back and relax, and maybe we'll make you grin, or maybe it'll take your mind off. If you're new here, this podcast, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tries to work. Some people, it works right away. Some people just use it time to time. And some people have already stopped listening. Some people are still listening. And if you're listening and grating your teeth, I'm sorry. I know it don't work for everybody. But, I'm just doing my best to take your mind off of whatever's keeping you awake. But if you're new here, you could just give it a few tries. Hopefully it helps you fall asleep and take your mind off of stuff. And just fall asleep whenever you want. I'll be here. You don't no pressure to fall asleep, no pressure to listen. But I'm glad you're here. And I really hope I really yearn to help you fall asleep, all right? All right, before we get to the story here, if you can just remember to use our Amazon link, sleepwithmepodcast.com/Amazon. Huge way to help the show. And let's get on with the show. Hey, everybody. It's Trending Twitter Tuesday. Actually, I'm probably going to do some trends tonight. When this episode's getting recorded, it's about 8 o'clock, Sunday night, August, end of August. I don't know the date, the last days of August. And I figured we'd have a Trending Twitter Tuesday, but I said, let me bring on a guest that everybody's been waiting for, and we had a false start recently. So I'm just going to turn the mic over to my neighbor, Ray Perkins. Actually, if you're new here in the last few months, it's been a while since Ray's been on. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings that has guest hosted this show, but Ray is probably, without a doubt, the most beloved guest ever to be on the show. I don't know if this is irony, but I'm pretty sure Ray, within my family and the people that know me, my neighbors, my podcast, Ray's a beloved guy because he's my neighbor Ray Perkins. He's somewhere between 50 years young and 90, but he's laughing. But I honestly, I have no idea how old he is, and I don't really want to know unless he's 50, and then I'll say, oh, holy moly. But Ray's like the grandfather you couldn't even imagine, and that's no knock on grandfathers. Ray's, and I guess maybe I'm being a little superfluous, but he's the most well-adjusted person I've ever met in my whole life, with a few exceptions, which he's taking exception to. He's not mic'd up yet, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but, just in case. So Ray's been on the show probably at least 10 times, so definitely most frequent guest, maybe more, he's saying. And usually Ray comes on to talk about his vacations because he's an older adult, and I guess he's retired. We don't talk about money because I can't talk about money. I get crazy. But Ray likes to go on vacations, particularly to Disney theme parks. It's Ray's thing. He was on in April talking about Disneyland and Disney California Adventure. And I wouldn't say Ray's my best friend. No offense, Ray. Just the age gap is and he's everybody's friend. But Ray's an incredibly caring man. Sometimes you'd say certain people would say too caring. He just has this way about him that I stare at him in jealousy, and then I go and get in bed and pull my covers up, and I close the window. And I try to black out the parts of me that say, "Why can't you be?" But he's not an inspiration. He's inspiring, but not an inspiration. Just because I don't have the same ability, he's just a great guy. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. And I hope you like him as much as everyone else does. But he's really good at talking in detail about these theme parks. That's his thing. So without further ado, Ray Perkins, everybody. Hello. This is your neighbor Ray, your friend Ray. And Scooter's here, little Andy, as I like to call him, having me on the show. And my new friends and my old friends, it's so good to be in your ears. My name is Ray Perkins, if we have not met before. And as little Andy said, Scooter, you know him as Scooter, I know him as little Andy. He tells me don't call him that. But he doesn't mean it. But I happen to be the neighbor of this young man, the young pot boy. And I also happen to be, I don't know if you could be the adoptive parent of two adults, but, the Gregor and Mikey who live with me, if you listen to the podcast for a long time. But they won't be appearing on this show. I won't be talking about them because this summer I had the pleasure of joining little Andy's family and little Andy and myself. And I realize there's concerns about privacy and giving everyone the space. So I won't be talking about his family, though they are lovely people. I say, you got yourself quite a kid here, this little Andy. And everyone in the family, they say, you didn't know him back in the day when he was, and then they say words, but they say, or sometimes they just give you a look like, oh boy, what is he going to say next about little Andy? I tell you, your friend Ray would love to spend some time with these nuns that are appearing on this new show that were teaching little Andy. But so I'm Ray Perkins, I'm your neighbor, I'm your friend. Hello, my friends. It is so good to talk to you. As I said, it's good to be in your ears. And I'm your friend Ray. If you allow me to be your friend, I'd love to be your friend. But I have the pleasure of coming on the show and talking about our trip to Florida. Now, little Andy and I and some other people went down to Florida Orlando, Florida. And I know little Andy, he talked about it a little bit because he had big plans. His expectation meter was, maybe it was the nuns that damaged his expectation meter, or it could have been the genome. But sometimes he has unrealistic expectations. But that's why I said, Scooter, let me come along. Let me help, point out the sunshine to you. He said, you don't need to point it out. It's bearing down on us. It was quite, I love the heat down there. And, I love to swim. So we went to Orlando, Florida, and I'd help little Andy plan it out because we wanted to see the Harry Potter lands. Your friend Ray was looking forward to it. Now, I don't know if we'll talk about the Harry Potter lands tonight, but I'll be here. I have free reign to come back on the show to talk about a trip over. Scooter had thought we would record every night at the hotel on the trip, so now he's a little stressed. But I said, don't worry, little Andy. So we flew to Orlando, and I don't have the details in front of me because what I do have is the Twitter trends, my friend. So it'll be a trending Twitter story here. And I guess I'll set up the overall impressions of vacation because that's what Scooter did, and that's what I would like to do for you and me. And as I think about the trip, it lasted almost 2 weeks long, and your friend Ray, even that's a long time to spend with someone, but not with little Andy. It's like. Remember he did a show called Adventures in Babysitting. Sometimes that's how it feels like Adventures in Adult Babysitting. Other times it feels like I'm on the VMAs receiving an award and he's giving me a look or saying, coming on stage as I'm trying, because I try to meet people. Your friend Ray, someone's working somewhere. I want to chat him up. I say, hey, well, how you doing? What's your name? Oh, well, that is a lovely name. And I noticed you have lovely hair, if you don't mind me saying so. Oh, and where are you from? Okay, that is really Argentina. That is a lovely place. Lionel Messi is, oh, yes, yeah. And now, what do you do here? You're standing here, you tending these brochures? Are you a protector of brochures? And when I start to do these things, little Andy, he just does not like it at all. He says, Ray, why you got to talk to the people? Come on, Ray. And I say, this is my friend little Andy. I want you to meet this lovely young lady here. He doesn't want me to be here talking to you about your brochures, but I'm sure your brochures, you're sure about your brochures. Oh, you don't work for the brochures. And so long ago, I stopped trying to do any, interluding with Scooter. I just try to be friendly. I said, well, he's my friend. Yeah. And then I said, well, sometimes it just comes. I said, well, what do you employees, what do you have for lunch here? Because I just had a sandwich that was out of this world. You eat at there's a Cuban restaurant, Scooter. We should go to that. Now, do you go to this? And that's how it goes. But little Andy, he sometimes he'll stay. It's strange. Sometimes, to me, his behavior is strange. To him, it's normal. He'll stand 20 feet away from me, looking at me, talking to someone. Then he'll pace around. Then he mutters. He does a lot of muttering, and not even things that I can hear. I think he's muttering to himself. But it was a great vacation. Those things aside, I look at those things with a light heart. Your friend Ray, here's your tip of the day. Have a light heart. Like, give your heart pump some helium into that heart, my friends. Let your heart float around. Fill it. You don't even need to fill it with joy. I mean, I know little Andy. But so we went to, he keeps peeking in here. So he wants me to stay on because I said, I want to do an overall show. And he said, Ray, they want the Harry Potter box. And I said, Scooter, you can't give them what they want instantly. And plus I have many observations. And he said, don't make them about my behavior. And I said, oh, little Andy, how do you make a sleep podcast? Holy moly. I said, oh, boy, I'm surprised you sleep at all. And then he breathes, and then he has his moments. He's a lovely guy. I tell you, folks, I'm just giving him a hard time. And I also know, my friends, that, the failed vacation locations that he talked about, that we get to stay. Oh, what an adventure. But I getting it when we stayed at the hotel that was just opening. But let me tell you, let me see a run through, because some of this was planned at the very last minute. And, because Scooter, he's not the best with money, but he loves saving money and he loves finding deals. So he was like, Ray, he goes, I ran the gambit, Ray. And I booked a different hotel almost every night. And I said, oh boy, you should have checked with me before you did that. But he said, you wouldn't believe the deals. And he showed me the prices. I said, holy moly, how do you do that for under $100? I said, you do know how to make the deals. And I said, do you know those deals of the rooms next to the elevator and the ice machine? And he said, Ray, they give me those rooms no matter what I pay. And I said, oh, I forgot you're the guy. They look at you. They see you, they size you up, they say ice machine, give him the room next to the ice machine. Poor Scooter. He just exudes ice machine. Or they say, well, should we give him the elevator? Which room? And they say, Sally, which room were those bratty kids in? Give him the room next to that one. And he's just one of those guys, a little bit like a Ziggy, Scooter is. Oh, he says no one would know what Ziggy is. Ziggy, Kathy, you wouldn't know who that is. Scooter has this tweet about Kathy. I don't think he's tweeted it yet. I keep telling him, did you do that tweet about Kathy? And he said, no, Ray. But anyway, so we flew there together with some other people in his family. And then we stayed at this hotel. Let me give you the mood here. It was, it's not exciting till you're on the plane with Scooter. So getting to the airport, I forget it. Okay, he was worried about his dog, but we had all that taken care of. It was all planned out, who was watching the dog. Then, of course, he was worried about sleeping and equipment. He said, making sure he had his podcasting equipment. And then it was sleeping. Then it was getting to the airport, but we had all that planned out. And he said, why don't they, he was a little worried because he said they haven't come out with the car sharing where you could book it ahead of time. But I said, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. We'll be fine. And we figured out a way to say, oh, well, we were using each other's codes because I love these car sharing things now. But I was using, so we were doing codes so we could save money to get to the airport. And so we went to the airport. San Francisco International Airport is where we flew out of, SFO. And we arrived at the airport there. And, his brother's girlfriend, she worked on one of these terminals for one of the architecture firms. And I was just blown away. They have nice, quiet rooms. But so we went to the airport. It was late breakfast time, I believe. Was it breakfast time, Scooter? I think so, because he had a croissant sandwich, I believe, at the airport. And then we checked in, and it didn't seem to be anything. I can't remember what airline we flew now. But it was one of the ones where the planes are still not up to date. So there was no charging and no entertainment, but everyone working there was very nice. So we flew to Atlanta. I do remember that, maybe. Or was it Arizona? I don't know. I think it was Arizona because Scooter, remember on the way back you had a crush on someone on the plane. That was Arizona. Okay, he's telling me to be quiet, but it was Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona we flew through. Does that sound right? Phoenix to Orlando, but I think that is what we flew, though it could have been Atlanta. Maybe we made 2 stops. I don't think Scooter would book it with 2 stops. He could, it's too risky. But we flew through Phoenix and both ways because I remember he had a crush on someone, and I also remember that there was we ate at the airport, and I remember saying, okay, well, it's fancy signs, but the food over here, no offense, but it just wasn't, And there was also, if you work at in this terminal at the airport, I do have a complaint. Now they had these different, everybody needs to charge their things nowadays. And the airport seemed to be grappling with this, which I don't know. I don't understand that, because you shouldn't be grappling. You should have I don't get that. It should already be, the charging situation should be solved. I don't figure it out already. Your friend Ray doesn't get mad about many things, but because they had these charging counters with about 8 seats on each side, and all the chargers were broken, the USB plugs. And then they had regular plug-ins, but they only had 4 of those on each side. They had about 22 USBs on each side. Every single one of them was broken. I say, holy macaroni, who is in charge of this? Bring them to me. So we flew from Phoenix, and we got into Orlando about 7 p.m., I'd say. And then Scooter was a little bit worked up again, but we were staying at a Disney hotel. Now, we weren't going to a Disney resort, which was interesting, because you got a young one, and then you get on the Disney magical bus. And this gets Scooter irritated too, because he says this is a monopoly, not Disney monopoly, because he says, he gets a little bent out of shape about that. But we took the bus to the Disney Caribbean Beach Hotel. And oh boy, was this this was the one that has all pastels. Now, I'll be honest, my friends, your friend Ray loves Disney. I love the Disney parks. I love going to them. Now the Caribbean Beach resorts. We may just have to spend the entire evening here because, let me just temper your expectations. So the insides of the rooms are nothing to sneeze at. So I'll be straight. Your friend Ray will be honest with you. But the outside of this Caribbean beach resort, and of course, your friend, I live in the real world. I just like to go away to a fake world when I'm on vacation. So I realize that this isn't the real Caribbean, and it's just buildings painted pastel colors, but your friend Ray still loves it. Oh, and we were staying at I believe we were staying at the beautiful turquoise and pink rooms. And it was we got there, we did some checking in, and that went fine. And they have a nice sign for the Caribbean Beach Resort with pineapples. And of course, Scooter was worried because he was striking his deals on whatever deal site, so he was afraid we wouldn't get rooms, but we got our rooms. And then it was late evening by the time we got checked into the hotel. Probably, my friend, I don't know, 8 p.m. or so. And it was still, the heat was, it was a lovely night, I remember, because then we walked. They said, would you want to take a shuttle to your room, or you could walk? This is how you would walk there. And so we took a walk to the room, and we got checked into the room. And it was, the rooms are not that great. They're not huge. But we put our stuff in the room, and then we walked from the room. And now this is when it gets good for your friend Ray. First of all, you get the night noises and the crickets and the bugs and all those things going. And then Disney is they do a really good job, my friends, of keeping, they use these retention basins, but they make artificial lakes. So this Caribbean Beach Resort, I think it's built around 2 different, little retention lakes, and I don't know what they're called. I know there's Castaway Key, I think is a place there. But we walked down to the water, and there's little beaches. Now you can't go in the water there, and now you can't go in the water. But they have nice beaches with little hammocks there. And then every group of hotel rooms has its own little quiet pool, which, we didn't actually swim in any of the quiet pools, but we went, I think we put on I wonder if we put on swimsuits. I don't know the answer to that. And then we walked to the food court, which they call old Port Royale. Now, poor Scooter, he was in for early disappointment. And he may have talked about this, but he had heard he had remembered when he was a little boy, he went to this hotel and he had gotten cinnamon ice cream there, soft serve cinnamon ice cream. And he said he was just hoping to eat that ice cream. They did not have that ice cream. They just had the run of the mill, like college frozen yogurt thing, like you would get in a college. And it's a bit like a food court where you look around and you say, well, do I want pizza, burgers? And the food, they're trying, I think, because Scooter's big on wanting vegetables because if he's going to drink 35 sodas, he wants to have some vegetables. And so I think he had a nice piece of chicken with some beans, black beans, and vegetables. So that is not a theme park meal. And probably about 12 sodas with his dinner. But we got to sit at dinner. We got to eat it outside. And the sun had gone down. They were showing a movie. I believe it was Cinderella. And they're showing a movie next to the pool. And so we were sitting there eating, and the little one was there, and she was, excited to be on vacation. And then we went swimming, and the pool seemed to like the Pirates of the Caribbean. Caribbean, my friends. It's two different words, I guess. The answer to where you're being is Caribbean, I guess. I don't know. Your friend Ray's trying to be funny, but it's not working. But they had two little water slides there, one little one for the littler kids, but that was a fast little water slide. And there was no line for that one. Now, this was another place where Scooter gets irritated. They had another water slide, which had to go up a staircase, and Scooter doesn't like standing water like that other people's feet have touched. I don't think he's talked about that on the show. But so if there's a puddle and if he has bare feet, he gets nuts. And so there was a lot of standing water, which I said, hey, Disney, what's going on with this what's with these puddles? I don't like puddles either. And now I got Scooter. And I think the Scooter also doesn't like, he doesn't like kids bumping into him. So waiting in the line for the, what do you call that thing? The water slide was a little traumatic for him. And also he doesn't do well. Your friend Ray, I love to swim. I love to talk in a pool. I love being in the pool. I love being around people. Now, Scooter, he likes to be under the water, and that's also true of him. And so he had some time at the pool, but he said, let's get back to the room and go to bed already. And I said, well, Scooter, it's such a nice night. He said, well, we got to reset our clocks, Ray. And so we spent a little time. I got to meet a couple people that were working there, but I didn't have, time to make any real new friends. But I really did like the pool. Now, Scooter would tell you, well, it's just a pool, Ray, with a bunch of fancy stuff around it. But they had a lot of different places to lie down. Now, we were there at night, which I highly recommend because there's no sun. But they did have like a little, it looked a bit like the inside of the ride of Pirates of the Caribbean. It had cannons that shoot steam, water mist. That was cool. It had a zero gravity entry, which I know is a big thing that people like. And Scooter says, well, what's the big deal about it? And I said, well, Scooter, it's easy to get into. You just walk in just like you're walking in water. So why do you got to be against zero gravity entry? And he said, Ray, I'll give you zero gravity if you. But so then we walked back to the room, after we dried off. Scooter probably got another, I think I wonder if we had any dessert there. I think he had plantains. I don't know if that's considered a dessert, but that was with his dinner. But I think he was a little bit down because he couldn't get his cinnamon ice cream, which I can understand. I said, well, cinnamon soft serve. And his Aunt Molly, she had been the one that recommended it a long time ago, he said. She said, oh, they have this cinnamon soft serve. Her family, Molly and Ed, lovely people, by the way. Oh, Molly and Ed. Now, they live by Scooter's mom and dad, a couple building cabins down. So I'm always sorry, my friend. So Scooter had he dropped something, so I just had to pause it there. I lost my so Molly and Ed. That's Scooter's aunt and uncle. And I believe occasionally the daughter, Abby, listens to the show. Abby and Chris, they're a lovely family, lovely people. And then her sister, Betsy, and the brother, John. I also have, now, John, he has a big family, and I think he's moving to Los Angeles. And his cousin, Betsy, he's giving me the high sign to talk about Disney. But I believe his cousin, Betsy, She used to be a librarian. And Molly's was a librarian. And then Molly, Scooter, one of Scooter's best friend's moms worked with Molly, just in case you need to know any of these things, my friend. You see, I'm like Ancestry.com or something. Your friend Ray, you got to listen. I tell Scooter, didn't you read that book, Scooter, I gave you about make small talk? Pretend you're the host of the party. And he says, well, that's a lot of work, Ray. And I say, it's a pleasure, Scooter. And he says, well, and I know he had his, we had talked about his soda and his introversion. And I know introversion, it's a tough thing, poor Scooter. And especially when he's with me and I'm like a human extrovert. And Scooter says to me, Ray, seriously, are you afraid to be alone? And I say, now when it's time to be alone, I'm not. But when it's time to be alone, I'll be alone, Scooter. But so that night came and went. We did not get the cinnamon soft serve. And we had a lovely walk back to the room. And you do a lot of walking at these parks, as we talked about. So before you go, and if you're new here, you might not have picked up some of Ray's tips for these theme parks, which over these next 6 to 8 months, 12 months, however long Scooter plans on leaking these shows out and having me over to record. But, I talk so much I can't wear my voice out. That's my bread and butter. But we walked along this, this lake there. And we went back to the rooms and we all went to sleep. And the next morning, Scooter's always the first one up, I mean, not normally. He's not a morning person, but he with this stuff, anything involving a clock, anything, he's like, okay. So he was already up and he left and he went to go deal with some ticket things because he was trying to understand what we were going to do for the day, because obviously he can't he can't stay in one place. I'll tell you what, if you want to test Scooter, just sit around in a hotel room with no plans. Holy moly. Those are the things where he gets, so he left and then he came back. He said, Ray, let's go get some breakfast and we'll bring it back for everybody. And I said, oh, what a nice thought you have. And I said, Scooter, did you ever play I'd Tell My Teen Self? And he said, no, because I would have to tell my preteen self, Ray. Before I would tell my teen self, I'd have to get prepped. So I'd have to tell my... And I said, okay, never mind, Scooter. You're not supposed to think about it so much. But I would say, would you ever tell your teen self to go get some breakfast for everybody? Because that is nice. And he said, I don't know if I would. I wish I would. And anyway, so we had a nice walk to breakfast. And Scooter picked up they have this crazy breakfast thing, which reminds me of the McDonald's Big Breakfast, which I could go for one of those, your friend Ray. But it has like a bunch of things, for one price. And, Scooter, he mainly needs the coffee because he had already drank. His room has the 2, they usually give you enough for 2 cups of coffee. He had already drank that coffee. So I guess that was another thing, was he had to get to the breakfast so he could drink a cup of coffee while we were there, then fill it up again, and then drink that when we were walking. And actually, I think he had half a cup of coffee left back at the room that he could mix back in with his coffee. But we had a nice walk in the morning, and that is another time for nice walking at these Disney parks, these hotels. And Scooter said to me, he said, Ray, I want to do some walking with you later. because this hotel, like we had said, it had these we could see on the other side, like, so for Scooter and I's hotel, I don't remember what the name of the place, they called them villages, based on the different islands in the Caribbean. But he said, this will be the night that we go walking, because he had seen these boardwalks that went through, looked like the trees and things, like a little nature walk. And I said, oh, you'd like to do that with me? And he said, I would, Ray. So then we got the breakfast and we brought it back to the rooms, and some people ate, and then we got ready to go do some things, but we'll talk about that another time, because then later in the day, as evening approached, we went back to the room again, and I don't know if people slept. It was late in the evening. I think Scooter probably had to get a show out, or get a show prepped. And then we chilled out for a little while. And then we went, and it was time to do some walking, Scooter said, because it was dinner time. And when you're at these Disney hotels, you don't really have a huge amount of choice, with you can only eat at this old Port Royale. And so then we went to dinner, and Scooter said, well, would anybody like to go with a walk with me through these boardwalks? And I said, you know what, Scooter, someone had caught my eye that I thought I knew, and I wanted to tell her, to say, hey, but and I said, he said, please, Ray, please come with me. So I said, okay, Scooter, I'll go with you. But no one else would go with us. But it was this boardwalk, like, when you go one of those nature walks where you're walking in the wood, it's like if you're going through a bog or something, they'll have these. Or if they want to make it accessible for all people to be able to go into the woods. And it went through some light woods along the side of this thing, but it was dusk, my friends. And oh boy, were we in for a lovely, lovely experience. Because we walked through there, and Scooter he thought there would be a bridge across the lake to the eating place. Now it ended up there was not, my friends. So we walked all the way to the other end of the hotel, but mostly through the woods. And Scooter, God bless his heart, he's always looking out for you listeners. And he said, oh, Ray, if I could get some time to come back here and record in these woods, I could get some really good night sounds. Now, the thing is, this vacation was exhausting for this young man, so he did not get that done. But we sat there, and as we got deeper, we realized that it was getting darker faster than the sun was setting. And so very soon what had happened is it started to thunder and lightning. It did not start to rain, though. And so we were walking, and then we wrapped around the end of the lake through and saw some other beaches. I think Scooter took his shoes off and walked in the sand. And then we walked around, and it ended up there was another lake with another whole set of hotel rooms. And I said, thank goodness we're not at those. They're so far away. And then I don't know if they had any boat train. You could rent a boat here. And I think one time we did see some people that looked like they were fishing. But there was no boat transport. But so then we came around to another boardwalk type thing, and it went over through a little swampy area. And then it got really dark, so we were watching this thunder, like heat lightning, I guess is what it was, my friends. And it was so beautiful. Oh, the heat lightning. And I think it was real lightning, and then because there was thunder. But just watching the sky with those colors, like the sun had set. So there was the colors of sunset, and then there was these purples and the dark grays of the clouds and iridescent blues. And it was like the strain to just not tear up at the moment and say, oh, my goodness, this is lovely. And I think there was also, when we were on this boardwalk, I believe during the day there's some playgrounds or something for the children. But then we walked, and then we stopped again at the pool because the lightning had gotten more intense, and we were on the water, so we could see it reflected in the water, and we had a beautiful view of the villages and things. And then we ate dinner, but let me just skip dinner, because then we were back where we were. And Scooter said he had his little one. He said, I want you to do this walk with me back around. She said, how far is it? He said, oh, you got to see it. And right as we got to the lake, my friends, they started with these fireworks, and it was a mind-blowing fireworks. And they said it was some Star Wars themed fireworks. So we got to we got an entire fireworks show. And that's one of the reasons your friend Ray loves these Disney parks is it feels like you're going somewhere special. Where else do you go when you get fireworks? When you just out, and you had Mother Nature's fireworks and then Star Wars fireworks, my friends. And so then we were able to sit on the beach for a little while and push each other in a hammock and watch these fireworks and watch people holding hands and people out for walks. And, you know, your friend Ray was able to say, hey, how you doing? We're just here. We're hammocking around here, barefoot and breathless. Did you see those Star Wars fireworks? They were, I mean, holy R2-D2. I mean, I almost BB-8 my dentures. I don't have dentures, by the way. It's just I said that as a joke. And I said to myself, I said, this feels like Disney Parks alive, like this is living. And then we walked back through the woods. And I don't think there was any bugs at the time. I don't remember any bugs. I remember Scooter, as I rarely see him, the podcast Scooter, you know, he was there. When there's things like lightning and iridescence, holy, he's an iridescent fan, and purples. He said, look at those colors in the sky, Ray. A quiet comes over him, and he's enthralled. I think that's the proper use of that word. He is enthralled. And then the same thing, we get deep into these woods, and there was a bench. And at first we were joking, you know, his little one didn't get some of the jokes. We said, oh, this is like a lover's bench here in the woods. You know, but he would only be hand-holding, yeah, because it's a Disney property. But Scooter, you could see the whole atmosphere, the noises of the night, the trees around us in a towering sense, the thickness of the air. He just stood at the edge of this thing looking out at, and I don't know what he was, it was like he was crossing over, and he was just soaking it all in, every bug noise and every drop of humidity in the air. And me and the little one, we were just looking at him and say, this is the same guy that was pacing around the hotel room 2 hours ago. And then we walked back to the room, and we had one more day at this hotel, but it was very much to say about it other than that. And then we moved. I don't know, my friends. Scooter saying I'm low on time, so I don't want to overdo it. But I believe we got an Uber to another hotel. I'm trying to think what we did. Because we had, you know, his deal was up at that hotel, so we had to get out of there. So I think what he had done is, you know, we had to put the bags in storage or some such thing, I think, so that he could, and then we went and did something and then headed back to the hotel. Scooter, is that right? I don't know. But we went to another hotel closer to Universal after that. And we had a lovely ride over there, I do believe. And then we checked, I think we did check in earlier in the day. So we got our bags, checked in with the bell people because we were there before the room was ready. And that was the first time Scooter found out the next hotel. He said, okay, so how am I going to get my bags from here to my next hotel? And they said, well, that hotel's not, is that hotel open? It's not even open. And then that was when his eyes glazed over. And then we checked into that room, and then we were lucky enough to take it to like a little boat. So we got to go on a little boat ride on a river. And Scooter, the river was a strange color. And Scooter said, is this a natural color of the river, or is there some sort of dye in here? And I said, well, why don't you ask the boat driver that, Scooter? And then he just stared at me, slack-jawed, and, you know, like, Ray, what am I going to do? But, I mean, I guess that's your friend Ray's first report from vacation, the first couple of days, a little bit, mostly about that hotel and Scooter. And but overall, I would say I can't say that we know he drank a lot of soda, but he did a lot of observings for my friend. So it was a good trip. It was a good trip overall, and I'll be in here checking in about a vacation. Like I said, he wants me to bring the vacation to you, over the next year or so, to keep the vacation going. So this was your first check-in from your friend Ray. It's so good to hear from you, friends. I am so proud of little Andy, and I'm proud of all of you that have been listening to the show or spreading the word about the show or supporting the show or just, saying, let me give this show a try, to listen to little Andy. It is his dream, not the dream he dreamed of as a boy, but he loves telling these stories. And he loves trying to figure it out. He doesn't just do these stories off a whim. Even when he does them off a whim, he looks at it like a little bit like a puzzle. And he's a puzzling person. So it's interesting to see him persist because that's the sad thing about him. He never really persisted. In this podcast, you don't know the persistence that goes on behind the scenes, my friends. So the constant effort he's putting in. I think you do, though. So, and your love is felt by him, even though he doesn't understand those things so well. Your friend Ray is here to help him with that. And he's an up and down young man. So he says, and we're trying to teach him what hope is and help him learn about hope. And as he said on this vacation we went on, his relationship with the podcast was changed because before we went on the trip, he was very stressed. He said, I don't know, Ray, what I'm going to do because I can't make this work. I can't get the people the sponsors. It's not working, and I don't know what it is. People don't, there's all these costs and, paying for this and how much time it takes and what am I going to do? And I said, Scooty, you'll figure it out. You figured it out so far. You just keep at it. But he said, I don't know, Ray. And he said, I just need to figure out what I need to do. And sometimes when he says that, I think he means, that he's deficient. But then he went on this trip and he said, he just showed me some of the messages. He doesn't reveal anybody's privacy, but he said, listen to this. This person just had someone in their life pass away. And he was touched. I could see it in his eyes. And then he said, this person's dealing with this health issue. Holy moly, Ray. And this person's dealing with this issue that they've been struggling with for their whole lives, Ray. And the podcast is helping them fall asleep. I can't believe it. And it really had this profound impact on him where he said, Ray, I know this show works best 3 times a week. I know it works best when I put my full effort in. And even though that's a lot of effort, that's what it takes to make the podcast that puts people to sleep. And he said, I don't know, I'm not going to force it anymore. I don't know how I'm going to do this and sustain it, but I'm going to. And, at the same time, I'm going to take care of myself. But he said, I'm going to keep doing it. And then when we got back, he said, I forgot how much I love making this podcast to put people to sleep. And I said, well, I love that you love making it, my friend. And I love coming on here and being able to talk in your ears here. He said, thank you for indulging me. And I'll be back soon. This is your friend Ray. So good to be back in your ears, taking you to sleep. It's a joy and a pleasure from your friend Ray. Good night. Yes, these are some new shrubs I've been checking out. I want to say I'm thankful for them because they support the show. Shrubs just support the show. These new shrubs. Robert M. Thanks and good night, Nicholas M. Thanks and good night, Jen R. Melanie P. Irma P. Alexandra C. Anne Marie M. Kelly B. France C. Jelena. Thank you. Jason M. Thank you. Rhonda M. Thank you. Carl T. Thank you with the W. Edward B., thank you and good night. Diane L., thank you and good night. Katie F., thank you and good night. Ann L., Annie L, Ann L, thank you and good night to all. Serena M, thank you and good night. Caitlin O, thank you and good night. Lily N, thank you and good night. Sabrina, thank you and good night. Doug, thanks and good night. Betsy T, thank you and good night. Anne, thank you and good night. June, thank you and good night. Lila, thank you and good night. Marissa B, thank you and good night. Suzanne L, thank you and good night. Lee K, thank you and good night. Kyla, G, thank you and good night. Teresa R, thank you and good night. David P, thanks and good night. Mermal Dad, thank you and good night. Joe S, thank you and good night. Erica S, thank you and good night. Emily R, thank you and good night. Jasmine, thanks and good night. Naomi, thanks and good night. Danielle G, thanks and good night. Maggie C, thanks and good night. Lisa W, thanks and good night. Sarah H, thanks and good night. Tracy P, thank you and good night. Charlie M, thank you and good night. Diane F, thank you and good night. Heidi L, thanks and good night. Momers J, thanks and good night. Karen, thanks and good night. Denise, thank you and good night. Chris C, thanks and good night. Georgina, thank you and good night. Camille, thanks and good night. Avery, thank you and good night. Emily, you, thanks and good night. Madeline F, thank you and good night. Sally M, thank you and good night. Luella, thank you and good night. Katie K, thanks and good night. Victoria C, thanks and good night. Millicent F, thanks and good night. AJ Y, thanks and good night. Patty R, thanks and good night. Jesse J, thanks and good night. Abby P, thanks and good night. Jerry W, thanks and good night. Aileen M, thanks and good night. MFM, podcast, thanks and good night. Oh boy, thanks so much and good night. Heather S, thanks and good night. Victor with K, thank you and good night. Taylor R, thank you and good night. Denise R to the H, thanks and good night. Aaliyah, thanks and good night. Alex F, thanks and good night. Cheryl Z, thanks and good night. Charmaine T, thank you and good night. Travis P, thank you and good night. Tam L, thanks and good night. Beth B, thanks and good night. Scott T, thanks and good night. Matt A, thanks and good night. Jennifer P, thanks and good night. Susan, thanks and good night. Justin J, thanks and good night. Suzanne W, thanks and good night. Sarah K, thanks and good night. Rihanna C, thanks and good night. Brian E, thanks and good night. Joseph D, thanks and good night. Sonia K, thanks and good night. Heather S to the M, thank you and good night. Tanya C, thanks and good night. Michelle, thanks and good night. Jan C, thanks and good night. PayPal, thanks to Melody S, thanks and good night. Juliana C, thank you so much and good night. Helena B, thank you so much and good night. Mine, thanks and good night. Julie D, thanks and good night. Aristeo, thanks and good night. Tom H, thanks and good night. Gerard T, thank you and good night. Glenn W, thanks and good night. Laura Y, thanks and good night. Namaskar Yoga, thanks and good night. Christopher W, thanks and good night. Tyler P, thanks and good night. Sally Ann B, thank you and good night. Jessica W, thank you and good night. Danielle D, thank you and good night. Lauren B, thank you and good night. Tara L, thank you and good night. Kevin G, thanks and good night. Bill K, as always, thanks and good night. Marina, thanks and good night. Spencer D, thanks and good night. And that's it. Thanks and good night, everybody.